Just because I'm a dumbass, don't mean that you can't be too. Don't be afraid to try this in your own home. Hello everyone, welcome to week 1 of the Beam Outlaws Challenge. I've already created the fastest versions of each of these cars that I could, following a simple set of rules, with the most limiting being no game mods. Today, we're going Outlaw. I'll be using a handful of drag racing related mods available from the in-game repository, and within a few simple rules, we'll be setting out to build some badass Street Outlaws and no Prep Kings inspired race cars. Over the past couple weeks, I've converted most of the cars from my list of the fastest unmodded drag cars into 4800 plus horsepower supercharged Outlaws. I'll be bringing all of those out for you tonight. In the end, the quickest 4 supercharged Outlaws from this episode will be brought back for a final shootout episode after we've also found the quickest nitrous, turbo, and pro-charged Outlaws from this series as well. I won't be the only Outlaw on the track tonight either. My opponent for each pass will be a specially tuned version of the supercharged Moonhawk I'll be driving later. Even in identical setups, the AI doesn't drive the cars to their potential, so finding one that puts up a tight race is difficult. To help it out, I've given it a few advantages like extra traction and some nitrous for the higher gears. Interestingly, this setup only makes it down the racetrack in the hands of the AI. With a human driving, it's just instant disaster. It did make testing quite fun sometimes, at least until I could figure out how to make each car work properly. It put up some pretty good runs here and there. To keep within the spirit of Street Outlaws and no Prep Kings, and to keep all the cars looking like cars, I've set out a few rules to follow. To keep it interesting, each car will only be using one power adder. Tonight we'll see the supercharged cars, and in the following weeks I'll bring you the nitrous, turbo, and pro-charged versions as well. All the cars must be front engine and rear wheel drive, and retain all body panels and roll cage. I'll be running the cars in the order they performed in their unmodded versions, starting with the slowest of those, the Gabriel D series. This wasn't just the slowest of the 8 unmodded drag cars, it was the slowest by a bunch. In supercharged Outlaw form, the Deer series runs a 6.115 at 252 miles per hour. This truck is a bit of a tank. It's the heaviest in this group, in some cases by several hundred pounds, so I'm actually pleased and surprised it ran as quick as it did. Next up, we got the Gabriel Burnside, known worldwide by the name Porky. Okay, I gave it that name and hardly anyone knows it or even cares, but I like the car. I will confess, however, that although I spent quite a lot of time trying to figure this one out, I'm still pretty lucky if I can just get it to the finish line under power and in one piece. Running all the way to the finish line, and barely a foot further, Porky runs a 6.045 at 232 miles an hour. We'll watch that again. From about half track on, the ass end of this pig just tries everything it can to beat the front end to the finish line. And a lot of times it does. It gave a pretty decent effort this time too, but our luck went out and we get a time on the board for the Burnside, and a decent one at that. Okay, time for the Gabriel Grand Marshal. This is another car that gave me a lot of trouble in testing until I was able to figure out the right parts that would allow me to mostly keep it straight. Grand Marshal runs a 5.963 at 254 miles per hour, in large part on 2 wheels. That was a pretty good run. It might have gone a bit quicker had it kept the wheels down better, but it's still good enough to put up the first 5-second pass of the night. Did someone call the cops? Here's the Raquel Bastion. It's the most modern of the cars in this group, and only the D-Series truck is heavier, but it comes with a well-balanced chassis and was probably the easiest of these cars to adapt to the massive horsepower. With little drama, the Bastion takes the number 1 spot so far, running a 5.918 at 245 miles per hour. So much more time spent on some of the tougher to tame cars in this group and relatively little spent on this car. With that pass locking the Bastion into the top 4 here tonight, no matter what happens, I'm looking forward to seeing how much more it actually has in it once we get to the series final. Next up we have the Gabriel Barstow. This car was not actually all that bad to get figured out. If you can at least control a car to the finish line, working everything else out is much simpler, and the Barstow at least did that more often than not. That said, there's no guarantees when you release a trans brake on cars with this much horsepower. Barstow makes a pretty sweet looking pass, running a 5.890 at 263 miles per hour to take the number 1 spot. That run will eliminate the supercharged D-Series from the series and puts Porky on the cut line. Next up is our Uber killer, the taxi liveried Gabriel Bluebuck. Next to the Burnside, this was the next toughest to figure out. It was also a struggle to get to the finish line until I figured out the right rear suspension parts. Now it's just a pleasure to drive. Oh yeah, it's also pretty quick, running a 5.924 at 241 miles per hour to land in the number 3 spot. I spent a lot of the time with this car just trying to make it go straight, so I'm glad it's locked in for the finals in a few weeks or so, and it'll be interesting to see what it's capable of when I can spend more time working on the driveline and converter settings. Sadly, we say goodbye to our Burnside after that pass. Porky 604 just not cutting it in this group. Graham Marshall's now on the cut line with just one more car to run for tonight. And that car is the Raquel Moonhawk. This was the quickest of the non-exotic unmodded drag cars, and after the list was complete, I was able to drop a little bit more weight and find a bit more power and punch it into the 6-second zone. This was also the first of these outlaw cars that I built, and as you may have seen in my last video, it was just a little short of what it needs to run here tonight. I've learned a few things since then, and made a couple changes. We'll just have to see if it's enough to beat a 5.963 and crack into the top 4. Oh, it's enough. Wow. 5.857 at 248 miles per hour, making it the quickest of the supercharged Outlaws for the night. That was a pretty stout pass for the Moonhawk. I'm a bit surprised it ran as quickly as it did as it bounced through every gear. I can't wait to see what it can do with a bit more work between here and the final episode. So that's it for tonight. We'll be seeing the Moonhawk, Barstow, Bastion, and Bluebuck in a few weeks or so at the Beam Outlaws finale, where they'll represent the best of the supercharged race cars for this series. If you enjoyed this video, leaving a thumbs up is very helpful towards growing the channel. Subscribe if you would like to see more, and hit that bell so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching. Come back next time and we'll bring out the laughing gas. See ya.